what are your thoughts on AI? Is AI going to be a good thing for business owners or a bad thing for business owners?
I think it can be a good thing for business owners, and it could also be a bad thing for business owners. It depends on how you want to utilize it. For me, on my end, I see it as an opportunity to work more efficiently, have a person or something that seems like a person to brainstorm ideas off of. The nice thing about it is at any time of the day, doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. and I get an idea, I can go to ChatGPT or Claude or whoever or whatever, and start to kind of have a conversation about something just to kind of help me extract these ideas that are in my brain and kind of put organization to them, because our brains do a good job of coming up with ideas, but terrible at organizing them as they come out. That's what I feel these tools are great at. They can help me filter and organize these ideas that I have and turn them into something that may or may not be useful. Probably more specifically, I could share is I've been using it to come up with metaphors for different pieces of content. I find that metaphors are an incredible way to teach, and it's a great way to relate to people. And I've used it specifically. I've used ChatGPT to help me with the concepts that I have in my brain, create metaphors that are more relatable to my audience. In fact, I used one at Social Media Marketing World last year. They had me speak on the stage, the closing keynote about long form video versus short form video. So I go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, come up with 5 different metaphors that would relate to this idea of long form video versus short form video. And they give me a bunch of options. And my favorite one was long form videos or short form videos are like Halloween candy. You know, you go to a person's house, you get the candy, and then you move on to the next one. That's like everybody's scrolling. And I was like, man, that's so good. And then it said long form videos is like when you invite somebody over to your own restaurant and you sit them down for a multi-course meal and they have an experience there with you, so much so that they want to come back and then bring their friends. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is perfect. So I share that on stage and people still continue who saw me speak about that. They use that metaphor now. I wouldn't have come up with that metaphor on my own, which is great. So it didn't necessarily replace anything. It enhanced the things that I was already doing. And it's allowed me to teach and share content in more memorable ways. Now, obviously, AI and certain things that AI does is taking over other people's jobs, other humans' jobs that they had once done. One particular market or industry that I'm thinking about is like the voiceover industry. And I'm thinking about a lot of these AI tools that can copy or use different voices. A lot of video game companies, a lot of movies are even using AI voices. Why would they hire somebody? You know, so there's pros and cons. And depending on the space that you're in, I think most important, the way to combat this, if you're worried about this kind of thing, is to find the things that only humans can do and lean into that. It's the relationship building. It's the storytelling. It's the empathy that you have for your audience. No AI is really going to understand that better than a human can. So lean into those soft skills and you will be not made as redundant and have more utility in the space that you're in.
Just on the AI voice note, you know, I used 11 Labs about a year ago or so. I recorded an entire podcast episode using 11 Labs. I simulated my voice. It read off the whole script, which was generated by ChatGPT, as was the title, as with the description. The whole thing was AI generated. And at the very end of the podcast, I popped in personally and I said, oh, by the way, everything you just heard, that was not me, completely AI generated. I got dozens and dozens of emails. People like, are you serious? That was a year ago.
Oh, it's even better now. It's crazy. I used it a couple of weeks ago and shared it on a YouTube video, and it's almost indistinguishable. And it's adding ums and little pauses as well. It's like people were actually in that video. The first comment was, the first clip was not AI. That was you. There's no way. Like, you don't have to be dishonest about this, Pat, for a few extra views and clicks. And I was like, no, that actually was AI. So that's how good it is that people are getting upset at me for thinking it wasn't. Anyway, it's wild out there. And I think this is, again, it speaks to the importance of relationships and building. And it also speaks into utility, just what it is that you have that is available that you can offer to whoever your audience is, or your crowd, or your people, or your boss, whatever it is. It's important to go, what is AI able to take from me? But then what are they not able to take from me? And I think it's a good time for everybody to kind of audit that in their lives right now.
Agreed there. You know, just another side note. I had a client who recorded an intro for me for their podcast that we're put together at my podcast agency. But they left out what I thought was a pretty key component, like a let's start the show. And so I just cloned the voice, added it into the end, and they're like, holy crap, that sounds exactly like me. That's incredible. Yeah, shocking. But I don't know if you caught this interview with Lex Friedman and Mark Zuckerberg. It came out, I don't know, a few months ago, and they kept talking about the physical world and the digital world. Um, at least right now, there's no way AI could come in and replace me in my physical world, shaking hands at networking, and going to events, things like that. But it strikes me that the digital world, it's becoming easier and easier and easier to replace people. I'll give you a perfect example. I want to hear what you think about this. AI influencers has become a huge craze, and it's very easy for me to create a perfect woman, video, photo. I can even text with her. Is that going to completely upend the entire way that people date and meet? And is the entire influencer culture doomed because of AI influencers?
Yeah, it reminds me of what was it, like a Jake Gyllenhaal movie where I think it was Jake Gyllenhaal, or it might have been somebody else. No. Anyway, an actor who
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix. Her, who fell in love with the AI kind of Siri like version in his house. It's interesting, where I think the problem is it's so easy to do now that a lot of people are creating these AI influencers, these perfect men and women who essentially take advantage of people in their loneliness today, and that's not okay, in my opinion, and are making money off of that, right? They're monetizing these things, they're building audiences and either selling things or running ads on top of things that are essentially fake and playing on people's lonelinesses. There's loneliness epidemics everywhere right now. Japan is under a loneliness epidemic, as just I think we all can feel in the world. So in that regard, I think it's terrible, and I think it's distasteful, and I think it's just wrong. But at the same time, with the technology that's available, imagine doing something amazing with it, right? Not using it for evil, but using it for good. Imagine an AI person who is a therapist, who is helping speak with a person about the problems that they have because they have nobody else to talk to, but it unlocks some things in their brain to help them through some tough times. Like, that is amazing. That is obviously an amazing utility. So as much as we always see, and this is with everything, right? There's always a good side and a bad side. And I'm just hoping that the good side wins, which many times it does, but also many times it doesn't. I think it depends on who gets behind this and kind of the influence that they have over people's, it's up for grabs right now. So anyway, I just always try to have the half glass full kind of approach to things and try to look for those positive elements. Because, think about a lot of these changes that happened in the more distant past that were pretty revolutionary and changed the world, right? When we switched from horse-drawn carriages to get around to cars, and everybody was freaking out about that, right? And yes, people lost their jobs and it changed the world, but it also changed the world for good. It allowed us to connect more and more easily travel between places and meet new people, and those turned into other things that have blossomed in this world. So again, utility and how we use these things is going to be really important. Obviously, there's a lot of dangers, and probably this is maybe a little bit more dangerous, especially when you talk about weaponization of this kind of thing and a lot of the stuff that Elon Musk specifically is worried about. Skynet and Terminator, those kinds of things are maybe not a reality, but kind of close to that is something that could potentially happen, especially if it's in the wrong hands. So
I heard Elon say in an interview the other day that there's probably like a 10 to 20% chance that it turns into Skynet, but it's worth it. I was like, 10 to 20% is a pretty probable chance, brother. We've got to fix that.